All right, so let's continue our first paragraph. There is one set in every 250 human births. No, not a set of blank, but rather a set of heads, a set of bodies, or to be more exact, a set of identical twins. As with most twins, as with many twins. So we don't want to argue the world, which is what I like to say. Like if you don't, if you don't feel like looking up most, you just change it to many. So I'm not a big proponent of being lazy, but I think, we're doing a lot of diligent work, this pre-work of brainstorming and outlining and going over anecdotes. I mean, that takes hours. I mean, it's going to take at least a few hours, or at least a half an hour, even if you're super lightning fast thinker. It's going to take at least a half an hour. So, I mean, this stuff takes time. So, with these examples, like you might decide, okay, based on all the stuff I have to do, the other classes, and the fact that, I don't want to look this up with most twins, but I know that many twins, because I've talked to a good amount of twins in my life, and a lot of us are premature rather. So, as with many twins, um, we were born premature. Um, so we were born premature, 2 months premature to be exact. Actually, we just said to be exact, so we want to back up if we're going to say we don't want to use that again. So as with many twins, we were born prematurely. We were we were born premature, which is a standard phrase. Um, I think that normally you wouldn't say that. You would say they were premature, they were prematurely born, but that's not a normal phrase that you hear in the everyday lexicon. Um, so I think as with many twins, we were born premature. That's a phrase that you'd hear just walking around. So I think that it fits and it flows. As with many twins, we were born premature. Now I could say 2 months premature to be exact, um, which is a fragment. But since this is a personal essay, sort of a narrative, it's okay to throw in a fragment here and there. You don't want to overdo it. Um, but I don't want to say to be more exact at all. So we want to avoid that. So we want to go down a different route. So as with many twins, we were born premature. Although we were supposed to be born during the early summer, we could say during early summer. During early summer, we could say we're supposed to be born in early summer or born early summer. Although we were supposed to be born early summer, let's just do in. Although we were supposed to be born in early summer, um, we actually popped out, which is kind of funny. We don't mean like disgusting, but it's still kind of funny to throw in like little phrases, because you're turning it in right for a grade, I'm assuming, or you want it to be presentable. Um, so you want to remember your audience, no matter what your essay is, or what you're writing. You want to remember your audience, right? And I'm talking about formal writing. I'm definitely not um, talking creative writing. I think that this is somewhat creative, but it's more formal. Um, so I definitely am not an expert at that, but I definitely think that with regards to more formal writing, that it's good to throw in these like visual phrases, because it keeps it interesting. You want to make your verbs dynamic. You could say we came out, or actually were born, right? But then that's repeating the phrase, right? We're born, um, and then be born. You want to mix it up. Again, this goes back to one of our theses, um, theses, which is that we want to vary our word choice. So, we were supposed to be born in early summer. We actually popped out. I like that. We actually popped out 5 minutes apart on April 10th. Um, on April 10th. Or we could say in April 10th. Or in April. In mid-April. It's sort of. We actually popped out 5 minutes apart in mid-April. Okay, now we look back. As many twins were born premature. Although we were supposed to be born in early summer, we actually popped out 5 minutes apart in mid-April. Yeah. And the reason why I'm not sharing like more details is I don't want it to necessarily be about us. If we were to say like the full date, year and all that stuff, then not only are they expecting like a 30-page paper or a book or a memoir, but they're also expecting more detail. Like the reader, I think, if you keep it sort of short and sweet, then you're going to just attack the high points and get in and get out. So you have to be sort of aware of what information does this reader need to know, and based on their expectation of what they're reading, right? So this is going to be like a 3 to 5 page paper. It's sort of a personal essay, but it's formal. It's for a class, let's say, and then, or for an application, for a scholarship or for whatever. So you want to keep that in mind. So then it's like, you know what? Nah, they don't need to know all the details, because then that's sort of it's kind of like overplaying your hand. So I think that you want to keep the details to exactly what they expect in that format. So if this was a longer paper, we were talking about more details about our family and all of that, then maybe stating our birthdays is important. But we're gonna just get in and get out, so we don't need to share month, date, year, all that stuff. So these are small, subtle things that you may or may not agree with, or you may or may not be really feel that that need to be mentioned. But I think that the more hopefully the more you check out these videos or the more that you write essays, you'll start to see what I'm talking about, that these little considerations are actually very important to the overall feeling, and the overall the feeling that is provoked with regards to your writing by the reader or the grader, and then also the grade that is given as well. So although we were supposed to be born in early summer, we actually popped out 5 minutes apart in mid-April. I like this sense because we're also answering a lot of questions that are obvious, like, oh, how many minutes apart were you? That's another question that might have been asked. Were you born natural, or was it cesarean? And we said popped out. So it's like, okay, we were naturally born. So, and then we also mentioned that we're born a couple months early. So I like this sentence. It's structured pretty well, and it's pretty functional. So in terms of sharing information. So incubators, we were tiny. My twin brother, Chris, was actually, he was smaller, so I should say me first, because I also want, it's all about the reveal, right? It's all about the presentation. So we were tiny. I was 3 pounds 2 ounces, and my twin brother Chris was 2 pounds 11 ounces. So I think it's OZ. And here's another, these are all editorial choices, right? So I think this is fine, I think, to do LBS and OZ. We could say pounds 2 ounces. But then again, it's a little long. It makes me think about another SAT math question, or just a math problem. Because those are common in those problems. And also, it's not a detail that we need to feel extra formal on. It's kind of difficult to explain, but I think that it's pretty obvious that we don't want to overwhelm the reader with just the mathematical sort of measurements. I think LBS and OZ, when you see on a birth certificate, I'm pretty sure that that's what they say. So I'm also taking snapshots from the real world as with regards to what people would normally see. So something that they're familiar with. Whereas if I was to write the word pounds and ounces out, a lot of times that would make me think of a math problem or something where I'm focused on, the measurements and the mathiness of it. So here, I think this is appropriate to just say I was 3 pounds 2 ounces, and my twin brother Chris was 2 pounds 11 ounces. I'm also sharing a lot of information quickly, which I think is really important. You wanna pack the information in really, really tight. So we were tiny. Oh, 3 pounds 2 ounces. As you might imagine, we were placed into incubators for weeks, while the hospital nurses, while the nurses. So if we say hospital, we kind of assume that it's a hospital if they're nurses. So while the nurses took care of us, and the nurses took care of us. As my mom still says to this day, and then here I'll put a quote. You guys had a 50 chance of survival, and of those odds, you had a 90-10 chance of having something horribly wrong with you. Could we put a comma here? Of those odds. I don't think we need a comma there. And of those odds, you had a 90-10 chance of having something horribly wrong with you. Later, we might say, like I might make a joke that the jury's still out, right, on whether or not something is wrong with us. We actually, it's not something to joke. I guess it's not something to joke about, but it's me and my bro, and we turned out fine, and we turned out okay. So I guess we could joke about it, and but I don't know if that's appropriate here. I want to keep it light, but we might or might not. So I could say the jury's still out, which is an actual cliche. So I don't know if it's good to do a cliche. The jury's still out on whether or not we have something wrong with us. So that's something that, like, I could say, that's kind of funny, but actually it might be sort of intrusive. And again, it might like lower the perception of the reader in terms of the quality of the writing or of the. I don't want it to be like too highbrow, too like stuck up, but at the same time, you don't want to just like jump down, like bring your quality of the writing down. It also depends on how old you are. I think if you're 11, it's very different than if you're like 17. So maybe an 11-year-old can throw in more parentheses and use more exclamation points. But I think if you're, in high school, or if you're applying for a high school scholarship or a college scholarship or whatnot, I don't know if this is the best choice to make editorially. So I would actually omit this. And yeah, so this is a good start. I think that it sets the stage for a continuation, but it also packs in a lot of details, salient details, without overwhelming the reader with too many words. Because we're gonna jump into, and we also covered a lot of ground here. We've got one set. This is done. So I'll just say this is done. So let's just go here and omit the highlighting. Yeah, we'll do that. And then healthy, which is where we're gonna go. So let's not make a joke here. Luckily, we ended up okay and made it out of the hospital. after our incubator stay. You could say incubator visit after, because I don't want to keep repeating the word incubators. After our brief, after our, so here you added another detail, but you didn't like repeat the word, right? So the other good thing about not saying all these details, like the hospital nurses, we know that there's probably a hospital, and so now it gives us an opportunity to later use the word hospital, and you're not repeating yourself. These seem like tiny decisions. These seem like they're not important, but trust me, guys. Like when you're reading 100 essays, it's really nice to be able to read something where the writer knows what's going on. Like the writer knows the score, like understands that you wanna keep it interesting. So we're assuming that it's a hospital because incubators, the nurses. We could even change to nurses. Well, nurses took care of us. We could even change, add an adjective. While attentive nurses took care of us. As Melissa says to this day, luckily ended up okay. Made it out of the hospital after a brief hospital stay. And then also it answers the question. So if someone has a question like, oh, were you at a hospital? Well, there's evidence that we were, because it's incubators and nurses. But then I mentioned our brief hospital stay. So I answer that question. So a lot of times, again, you want to think about, is the reader asking the question? And then you want to answer that question pretty quickly. Or if you don't answer the question, make sure that there's enough evidence around you that paints the clear picture that you're probably at a hospital or you were probably born somewhere else. So you want to make it really, really clear. So that's a good start. Until the next time.